All right, as always, let's take a look where we left off. You can see now we have a projectile, we can move around, we have all these different variables. Now, remember, as we're building this game out, all of these variables, these exposed variables, are part of the game design process. So a lot of times people are like, well, what does a game designer do if they're not necessarily scripting or creating art? They're the ones who create the fun and they sort of help guide the practice. So like you can see now we're getting pretty big in all of our variables and stuff. And so the game designer would go in and tweak all of these values. So if you wear many hats and you're the game designer, the artist, and all these other things, you might want to like build out the code, do whatever it is. If it's not moving as smoothly or as much fun as you like, go grab a friend, have them test it, take some notes on what needs to be improved upon, and then change those notes or change the settings based on that. So it's a lot of fun. It's part of the process, but it can burn you out if you don't take many breaks and try to get some outside help. Anyway, so what I'd like to do in this video is hook up some audio. Now let's go to the web really quick, and I'll show you a website that I like to use to get free audio. All right, so this is a site I like a lot. It's called Mixkit, and it's just mixkit.co. And up at the top, you'll see there's video, music, sound effects. I'll generally click on sound effects. And I like this site too because you don't necessarily have to create a like account. You'll see a pop-up that appears, but you can just close it and it'll open up your downloads. So if I go in here and I type in laser and I press enter, you can see there's a bunch of stuff. And I kind of like this laser game whip. So let me go ahead and press play. So that sounds pretty cool. There's also this one. You know what? I might. I mean, you can go with whatever you want. Here's a laser cannon shot. Whatever is like pleasing to your ears. We're going to adjust the volume and some of the settings. Actually, I like this the best. I guess I just like it all. So pick one that you like. I'll go with the cinematic laser swoosh. And I'll just click the download button. And what's nice is, like I said, this pop-up appears, but you can see that they're here. It's saved off a copy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video now, but I'm going to go into my downloads folder and rename it and just throw it on my desktop. I'll probably name it like Laser Swoosh and get rid of all the extra stuff. One key thing, though, before I jump back to Unity is that make sure that you're downloading a .wav file. That's the preferred audio file by Unity. All right, so I went ahead and renamed the file and I threw it on my desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create and then folder, and I'm just going to call this audio. And this is where we're going to put all of our music and sound effects and things like that. And it's generally a good idea to create a folder underneath it just called SFX for sound effects. And then I'm just going to right click and then go to import new asset. Go ahead and navigate to your desktop. Forgive the dirty, how stuff's all over the place. And on my desktop, in preparation for a lot of the classes and tutorials, I tend to save off a lot of files quickly. All right, if you don't see this wave format here, you probably have this docked below, so you want to drag it up. If you don't see it, even after you pull it up, you might be downloading a file other than that's not accepted by Unity. So go back and double check that your file isn't corrupted and that you do have a WAV file. So if I press play here, I can also hear it, which that's a little jarring. So we're going to have to tweak that a little bit. But those we're going to actually do that by adding an audio source. So let's look at our projectile spawner here, and you can see we have a script here. There's something I'd like to add to this, and that is an audio source. So just start by typing in audio, and you'll find audio source down here. Now you'll notice that that appeared in the front, and it's attached to our projectile spawner. I'm going to grab my laser swoosh audio clip and drop it in here. Now, don't worry about a mixer. This is a good way of mixing between multiple audio files. For the volume here, I'm going to make it 0.5, just about half the sound. I'm actually not a big fan of loud shooting and things like that because I like dramatic games. I want to enjoy the music and the dialogue and stuff. So this even still might be too high, but let's test it out. So you notice if I press play, it automatically plays the sound and then nothing has been shot. And that's because of this feature here, play on awake. So let's go ahead and uncheck that. Now, if I press play again, that's off and that's perfect. Now, I need to add a couple variables. I need to add a variable that accesses this audio source. I also need to add another variable where I can load the audio file in here so that when I press the left mouse button to shoot, it'll actually play that audio file. but the volume and the controls of how that audio reacts in the world here will be controlled here. Now, there's one last thing. How you're able to listen to any audio at all in your game is by this thing called an audio listener, which comes automatically attached to your camera. Now, the audio listener really is just a set of ears. So as the camera's moving around, that's what you're actually listening through. If you wanted it to be where the character walks up to another character and you can hear the dialogue as the character approaches, you would add the audio listener to the main player. For now, we're not going to tweak that. I know it seems like a lot in preparation. And to be honest with you, when we go to code this, it's going to be like really pretty easy code and it's not that much. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let's go to Visual Studio. All right, so here we are in Visual Studio. Let's go ahead and start putting these in. So I have this public audio clip called Fire Sound. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And what this is this is where we're going to drag in about a second that audio clip that we created. And then we have the audio source, which I mentioned before, which controls the volume and other elements of the audio file. And then we're going to, I left it public, but we're not going to drag our audio source in there. We're probably going to bring back our start method and get this component from this projectile controller. So let's save this and return to Unity and hook these files up. All right, so here we are back in Unity. Let's select our projectile spawner, and now you can see that we have a Fire Sound audio clip here. So I'm going to grab that laser swish, drop it in here, and we already have it here, so we can adjust that. Now, I'm not going to grab this audio source and drop it in there. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. I'm going to actually do that through code. So let's save this, and let's return to Unity and take a look at that. Or return to Visual Studio, rather. All right, so I'm going to add back our start method, and I'm also going to grab the audio source component, and then what this will do is this will auto-populate this public variable with this the audio source component that's attached to our to the projectile. So let's go back to Unity and just see really quickly that in action, or that working. All right, so now you can see that my public variable here says none for audio source. When I go to press play, you can see here projectile spawner is grabbed. That's this actual controller, and the component is the audio source and automatically loads it in there, which is perfect. All right, so let's go back to Visual Studio and let's add a few more lines of code that when we press the left mouse button, it'll play that audio file. All right, so let's go down to our fire projectile here. And what I'm going to do is just add this one line of code. And let's actually put this back here. Give ourselves, clean that up, make sure. All right, so what this does is this grabs the audio source, which is this right here. And every time I left click or I fire, it's going to play one shot, which is the fire sound here. And that's this audio clip here. The reason why I'm grabbing the audio source is the audio source dictates how loud it is and those other parameters. So as I grab that, it's going to take that information and it's going to play the sound with the audio source parameters. So let's save this. Let's return to Unity and let's see this in action. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and press play. And now you can see as I shoot, I'm able to, it plays the fire sound, which is pretty cool. You can move around. And something else I'd like to do maybe with my, let's see, canvas really quick is, might have to, let's see, scale with screen size maybe. I want to make sure that when I play it maximize, let's see, it looks like I might have to tweak it a little bit more. Let's see, I guess constant pixel size, and because what's happening here is as we're moving this, it's sort of going with the scene and it's blocking a lot of visuals. So let's go ahead really quick and let's grab that panel. I'm going to hit F to focus, kind of move that down, and my slider and this text, and just get it out of the way of our game. It's really getting, we might have to tweak it a little bit more. Anyway, the audio is working. And what we'll do in the next game is, in the next video rather, we'll work on getting it so that the projectile actually interacts with our NPC.